What to grow in February? When you start to think about the range of possibilities of things that you can sow and grow, it can get a little bit daunting. So this is going to be my unmissable edited list that does all of that thinking for you. Not just edibles, not just flowers, and not just seeds, so that as the months go by, you can easily build up your own collection of what I think are just brilliant plants that are going to give you abundance and tasty food from vegetables and fruits, colour and scent from flowers, and most of all, have year-round interest that is going to make your garden great. Search for what to sow in February, what to plant now, or what to grow in winter, and I'm sure you're going to be bombarded with videos and articles full of suggestions. Too many suggestions! I can say this because I have made those videos, but realistically, you're never going to be in a position to sow and grow all of them. Plus, I get asked all the time for my recommendations for, say, winter colour, or a great plant to give as a gift. So I've created this, a monthly series, and this is the first episode, where I'm going to cut through all of that noise and handpick 5 truly brilliant plants for you to grow each month. Enough to give you variety, but at the same time, not so many that you're going to get overwhelmed. Some to start from seed, some that you can go out and buy. And don't just take my word for it. What I've done is I've brought together my own top team, some of the best YouTube gardeners and growers I know, to create a plant list that you know you can rely on. So let's get stuck in. It is really less than ideal having to be down on the cold ground at this time of year, but I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it because I want to show the first plant which I'm going to recommend to you to grow in your own gardens, and it has to be these snowdrops. And the reason I'm recommending them is that despite the bare winter, when you look out into your garden, one of the first things that you're going to see if you've planted snowdrops are the flowers of snowdrops. And there's something really just so cheering about looking out and seeing those tiny little white flowers. And you can see how beautiful they are. These perfect little 3-petaled flowers that when you look really closely, you can see that inside they have the most beautiful green markings. Whatever snowdrop you go for, they're going to be beautiful. You can get ones of different sizes and you can get ones with different markings. Trust me, growing snowdrops is something that you can get really obsessively into. There are people called galanthophiles that collect them and spend serious money on snowdrops. And I can kind of see why. They are like beautiful little collector's pieces. But the reason I want to recommend them is that you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a lot of value out of these. If you go to the garden centre or look online, around now you're going to be able to buy little pots just like this. And what's great is these little pots only cost €1 or €2, and it's really easy then to plant them into your beds, borders and pots so that you can enjoy them. And the reason that I'm recommending buying them like this is really twofold. For starters, although you can buy snowdrop bulbs, they do tend to dry out very easily. And once they dry out, sadly, it's game over for them. These are really quite picky about staying nice and moist and not getting dry. So that's why traditionally you would have bought these in the green, as it was described, which is once they've finished flowering, the leaves are still green and growing, but you then lift them and you move them. The other advantage to buying snowdrops now and planting them in the ground now is quite simply that you can see where you're putting them. The bulbs are so small, and because you're obviously waiting until winter for them to pop up and flower, it's really easy to plant them places, forget about them, and then accidentally put a spade through them or dig them up, which is really not what you want to do. I totally recommend getting some of these. Over the years, they're going to clump up, form lovely bigger clumps that you can either enjoy or you can lift, divide and start to multiply the numbers that you have in the garden. I think for the sake of a couple of euro, these perform really well. Years and years of what is actually I suppose a really nice, delicate beauty and something that's going to lift your heart in the middle of the winter. But now for my next recommendation, I'm going to hand you across to Liz Zorab at Buy Their Farm with her top recommendation for a great seed that you can start now that's going to give you a really bountiful, big harvest of something that you can eat in only a few months' time.
I think that broad beans are probably one of the most underestimated vegetables in our garden. They can be sown in November or now in February, and you can harvest them somewhere between the end of June and mid-August, depending on where you are in the country. They are big, fat, healthy looking pods, and these are pretty healthy looking beans. I didn't like broad beans, also known as fava beans, as a child, but I think I didn't understand how to prepare them and how to cook them. And now I use them in all sorts of things, not only as a side dish, but for making pestos and for also making bean burgers. You can sow them direct into the ground or into trays, modules or pots, and that's what I like to do. I like to put them into either trays or pots and then raise them up off the floor, hopefully suspended, so that our local mice or vole population can't find them. And when they're about 5 or 6 inches high, I then plant them out into their spaces, and they really could do with some support. So I use string zigzagged across the bed to give them support as they grow. So now the supports are all in, I can start planting. This bed is 4 feet wide, that's 120 centimetres, and I'm putting 4 plants per row across the bed, multiple rows going down. And when it comes to harvesting them, don't forget you actually get 2 harvests from broad beans. The tops can be pinched out, particularly if you see signs of black fly on them. Pinch out the young tops and take those in and use those as a vegetable too. They have the most wonderful broad bean flavour. They've got the instant green. I just wilt them in a pan, added a little bit of butter and black pepper. To save your own seed, all you need to do is spread them out on a tray. I like to use a little bit of greaseproof paper under them and then allow them to dry naturally. And once they're completely dry, store them in a paper envelope, and don't forget to label it so you know what they are and what year you saved them.
I got to agree with Liz, broad beans really are a brilliant thing to get started now. I sowed some back in the autumn and you can see quite how well they're doing. Or in this case, not well. Despite the fact that I sowed broad bean Super Aqua Dulce, which is one of the toughest, hardiest varieties, the really extended cold period that we had before Christmas that completely froze the ground here, well, it's done a bit of a number on my broad beans, and there's not many that are looking like they're going to pull through. So I'm definitely going to be sowing some more now so that I can get those really nice harvests in a few months' time. So we've covered really nice snowdrops to have in your borders. We've covered broad beans. Let's talk about another ornamental that you can grow that's going to be really cheap and easy as well. And it's sweet pea. Now, there's a reason that sweet pea is pretty ubiquitous, and it's because I think it's really just a great performer. For starters, it's going to be easy to sow, grow and bring on into baby plants, and it's something that you really want to get started now. When I sow them into root trainers. When it comes to sweet pea, I'm not going to recommend just one single variety, and that's because every year I pick something different, and really I'm pretty much taken by whatever I see in the garden centre. This year I'm going with a signature blend, which is a whole mix of different colours, and one that is a mix of purples, mauves and whites. And the reason that I'm recommending sweet pea this month is it's really nice to be able to grow something that's going to look lovely in the garden, but at the same time you can pick and enjoy. Get them started now, bring them on, and then plant them out later in the season. They're going to climb up whatever you give them, whether it's an arch like I have here in the vegetable garden, or a set of canes, anything like that. they're going to romp away, and they're a bit like a cut and come again salad. The more you cut, the more flowers they're going to produce, and you're going to get brilliant, gorgeous scented, gorgeous looking flowers all the way through the summer. They are going to keep going just for so long. They're brilliant value, and I completely recommend sowing some if you haven't already. But we're really getting through the list now, and now it's over to Tanya from her channel Lovely Greens to recommend something that's going to work for an undercover growing space.
We're here inside my polycrop, which is a hard-shelled polytunnel. And last year, I had an incredible harvest of aubergines. They were here in the center bed, and I grew two varieties, Moneymaker and Mitoyo. Moneymaker is a more standard variety. You can get seeds in Britain. Mitoyo is a heritage variety, and it had kind of an interesting shaped fruit. Both were incredibly delicious though. Now, aubergines, also known as eggplants, they are a tropical crop. And we can grow them here in Britain if we give them the time, the effort, and the patience that they require. And now in February is a good time to sow the seeds. If you're starting your aubergines from seeds, you'll want to do that undercover in the house. And they only germinate at between 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. And that means a constant temperature both day and night, which is why a lot of people use heated propagators to get their aubergines started. Now, once they have germinated, you need to give them plenty of light. They are warmth and light lovers, and you'll need to keep growing them on and potting them up over the coming months because they are a frost tender crop. You cannot put them out until all danger of frost is gone, and they love warmth. So we tend not to plant them out until May. So if you are starting your seeds now, use free draining compost for seedlings, or you can use core pellet pots as well, and plant them up with 1 to 2 seeds. Get them going, give them warmth, give them light, and then when you start to see them germinate, put lights on them immediately. Window light, so natural daylight from your windows this time of the year, does not cut it. And you can get different types of grow light setups, and the most inexpensive one that I've found here is a type that you can clip onto your windowsill. Those will do just fine. But you do need to accommodate for size as well, because aubergines need to get to the point of having about 6 to 8 true leaves before you plant them out. So quite substantial plants. Now, if you don't have the time and the effort and the space to grow aubergines from seeds, don't worry, you can get plants easily enough from garden centers and ordering them when the time is right.
I promised you a really great varied mix of plants, some flowers and vegetables, some seeds and some things you can buy. Well, I've saved what I think is the best until last. It's something to treat yourself to, and it's in answer to something that I get asked all the time, and it is, Niall, can you recommend something great for winter colour? And for me, when it comes to winter colour, aside from bulbs, it has to be this. And this really is something a little bit special. It's this. This is a hamamelis, or commonly known as a witch hazel. And in particular, this witch hazel is Hamamelis westersteed. If you're not familiar with these, what is beautiful about them is that they really sing at this time of year. When you plant them, they're going to form quite a big shrub, a couple of meters in height and a couple of meters in width. But don't worry, they're not really vigorous. It's not difficult to stay on top of them. For most of the year when they're in leaf, they just have, well, really kind of broad green leaves, nothing particularly special. However, once they shed their leaves, they sit like this, bare stems through the early winter until late winter, and then they come alive. All of these tiny little buds along the stems burst open to reveal these bright, acid yellow, really spidery type flowers. They are a bit of an oddity, and what's lovely is, as this develops, what you end up getting is this sort of very light yellow cloud of flowers. They really do reward closer inspection. When you look at them, they are just the most unusual, delicate little flowers. I love them. This particular witch hazel is yellow, and most of the varieties are, but if yellow isn't really your colour, don't worry. There are other varieties out there that you're going to love. There's ones that are a lovely kind of burnt orange, almost rust colour, and there are ones that have a lovely orangey red tone, so there's plenty of choice depending on what you like. Most witch hazels are going to flower from January onwards. This particular variety, Westersteed, flowers that little bit later. It's going to start flowering in late January, early February, and should flower all the way through to March. Now, I've loved this plant for a long time and never owned one. So I've treated myself, and it is a bit of a treat because these plants aren't cheap, but they are an investment piece. This is a shrub. It's going to give you years and years of joy. A lot of witch hazels, including this one, have just the lightest of scents. So what you're going to get is something that's got loads of structural interest, lots of winter colour, and a little bit of scent, plus something that, I don't know about you, I think is a bit of a talking piece as well. 5 really great plants for a month that can't always be described as being really great. And before you go, if you're looking for more inspiration, click on this video for more really great, brilliant suggestions of things to grow. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree with my choices? Or what are you choosing to grow now instead? And until next time, see you later.